now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
It works now. Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Handshake Wednesday. And here's why. I saw the great Democratic debate last night. 6 Democratic presidential candidates right up there on stage. They talked foreign policy. They talked health care. They talked trade deals. They talked about who's the best suited to defeat Donald John Trump. They talked all the great issues of the day. But what are we talking about the day after? Handshake Gate.
Ooh.
Yeah, Handshake Gate. That's what we're calling it. As in Elizabeth Warren so mad at Bernie Sanders, she didn't shake his hand after the debate. That was the scene, folks. After the debate, Elizabeth Warren walked over to Bernie. Bernie put the big paw out. Oh, boy, was standing right there. Tom Steyer.
Oh, boy.
Tom Steyer was standing there. Hi, guys, I'll just hang around. And Elizabeth Warren pulled back her hand and said, And then they went at it. They started talking to each other. Steyer's like, hubba, what do I do here? And he, beat the retreat. Getting out of here. Although, most people would hang around if they heard a fight going down. You know what I'm saying? Ooh, this is really interesting. But I guess Tom Steyer was a little embarrassed. Anyway. Yes. It was a showdown, and it's like part 3 of the breakdown and the peace pact between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. We all knew this was going to happen sooner or later. They're the 2 most progressive candidates in the race for the nomination, the Democratic nomination, and obviously they figured out, they probably knew it all along, but they've come to the conclusion with the Iowa caucus just around the corner that they're angling for the same audience, and if they're going to win the Iowa caucus, if they're going to break out, they have to undercut the other one. And so the fists are flying, metaphorically speaking. They've restrained themselves, up until now. But as the New York Times put it, oh boy, I'll tell you what. Stacey Davis Gates on the show last week was teasingly calling me Don King because, you like to hype these things up. Well, reporters love to hype political fights up. And this is this is from today's story in the New York Times. New polls in Iowa show Democratic voters are roughly split between 4 top candidates. The long-standing non-aggression pact between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders is in tatters. In tatters, D.
That's a weird word.
Tatters, yes. It's in tatters. All right, so what happened? All right, let's break it down. But we've been following this for the last week or so. It all started, folks. I know there's a lot of Bernie bros out here. A lot of Bernie bros come through this studio. We're very heavy with Bernie bros, right, D? But it all kind of started last week, just saying, when the Bernie people started doing those scripted calls. Remember that? We were talking about that, where they were sort of writing off Elizabeth Warren as a candidate of the elites. And Jimmy Dore is always ripping on Elizabeth Warren, too. He's a big Bernie bro. And so, it's just this general antipathy, I love that word, that Bernie bros have toward Elizabeth Warren, like she's blocking their way. And they want to, it's not good enough that you promote Bernie. You got to undercut Elizabeth. So that was going down. Come on, don't deny it, Bernie bros. Warren.
Oh, I got Ben, watch out. It's Bernie bro. Oh. Oh, my Lord. Coming at you.
Man, I didn't see that, Bernie bro. Incoming. Bernie bros. Warren fired back. Her campaign announced that in 2018, all right, 2 years ago, she had a private conversation with one Bernie Sanders, and in the course of that private conversation, Bernie told her that in his humble opinion, a woman couldn't get elected president, all right? That's what Elizabeth Warren said that Bernie said. Bernie vehemently denied it. Vehemently, D. I never said it. That's my bad Bernie imitation.
Yes, it is.
So last night at the debate, one of the moderators, I can't remember which one, put it right to Bernie. Did you say it? No, I never said it. He went on and on about how he didn't say it. And then the moderator turned to Elizabeth Warren. Oh, my God, you talk about picking a fight. And said to Elizabeth Warren, well, what did you think when Bernie said that? Not that, well, Bernie said he didn't say it. What do you still stand by it? No. It's like, oh, yeah, forget his denials. What'd you think when he said it? And Elizabeth Warren said, I disagreed. And so that's where it kind of seemed like Bernie said he didn't say it. She said he did say it until after the debate. When they came together, Bernie put that big paw out there. Elizabeth Warren said, negative.
No, sir. Slap that hand away.
She was
no,
like,
sir.
Dikembe Mutombo, get that weak.
Hang tight, non-sports fan.
I know. All my Bernie bro listeners are like, what? Who? Dikembe Mutombo? Was he in the Clinton cabinet? I'm all confused. Now, Bernie, come on. There's some sports fans out there among Bernie Browers. Anyway, so that's the situation. She wouldn't shake his hand. Tom Steyer didn't know what to do about it. Afterwards, the funniest part about it was watching Tom Steyer get interviewed by old boy Anderson Cooper. Did you see that one? Oh, what'd they say? And Steyer wouldn't. Anderson Cooper must have asked him 3 different times what they said. And Steyer's like, not gonna say.
You know, I'm running. You can ask me questions about.
I know. The only thing they cared about is what did they say? Well, it's true. I'm in the race. I exist. I'm important. I'm a billionaire.
I'm Tom Steyer, damn it.
Yeah, but what did they say? All right, anyway. So, I've been thinking about this. I'm all over the map. This is one of many of those issues where I'm all over the map. On one hand, doesn't sound to me like something Bernie would say, right? I don't know. Just doesn't sound like something that Bernie would say.
Well, shout out to KMA Barry. KMA Barry says Mutombo was Secretary of Defense. That's pretty good. That's really good.
Send him a blue Cadillac, all right?
We're not sending you anything, sir.
That's good, though, Secretary of Defense. There proves my point that some of our listeners are sports fans, D. Anyway, Dikembe Mutombo for the sports clueless people out there was a great defensive center for which team, D?
Well, a few teams. He was on the Nuggets, then he was on the Hawks.
Very good.
Then he was on the Sixers.
Okay, enough. Yeah, you're showing off your he knows sports. I just remember him for the Atlanta Hawks because that's when he battled Jordan in a couple playoffs. Anyway, let's put the Dikembe Mutombo.
Focus.
Okay. But I'm all over the map on this one because on one hand, it doesn't sound like something Bernie say, but let's say he said it. Let's say in the heat of the discussion, he said it. And now if you're Elizabeth Warren, you're sitting there on stage listening to Bernie deny something that you know he said. I mean, I'd be pretty irritated, right, D? I don't know. I'm just saying, okay? Maybe she went up to him after the debate and said, you said it, you little beep.
Oh, okay.
So anyway. But here's the thing, man. Democrats love fighting each other. Sometimes I think they love fighting each other more than they love fighting Republicans, all right? So for all I know, right now, hackers loyal to the Russians are right now have invaded Bernie's computers, Bernie's campaign's computers, and Elizabeth Warren's campaign computers, and have extracted all these emails in which Bernie is saying mean, nasty things about Elizabeth Warren, and Elizabeth Warren's people are saying mean, nasty things about Bernie Sanders. And on the eve of the convention, D, right when the Democrats gather in Milwaukee to hold hands and sing Kumbaya, we're all together in the race against Donald John Trump, the Russians will release those emails. And all of a sudden, you'll see these emails where Bernie's saying, beep, that mother, beep. And Elizabeth Warren's going, he can kiss my beep, beep, beep. That's the Democrats, man. And then they'll fight over the emails, and people like me will be calling for an investigation who hacked the emails. Oh, my God, my beloved Democrats. I'll tell you what, folks. It's unclear whether they can beat Donnie Trump in November, but one thing's for certain, they sure love beating each other up. We got a great show today. Monroe Anderson makes his return. It's been 3 weeks, D. We lost a couple of Wednesdays because we were on vacation, right? For
I gotta admit,
Christmas and New Year's, yeah.
I miss Monroe.
I know. I talked to him today. I said, Monroe, we miss you, man. Oh, he's so fired up because right before we went on the air, the Democrats in Congress sent the impeachment articles of impeachment over to the Senate. Of course, the Senate's going to be a kangaroo court. But anyway, I'm sure he'll be fired up. Monroe Anderson's predicting that that Donald Trump would not be the president. He'd be impeached or he'd quit or whatever. So this is his big moment. He'll be here talking all about impeachment. Samina Mustafa, a good friend of the show, will be talking a debate. She comes on after every debate. I talked to Samina. She's all fired up.
Samina.
She's the host of her own podcast. We got to promote that podcast. I forget the name, but we got to promote it. All right. Jaquie Algee from SEIU Healthcare. She'll be in there talking about the Women's March. We made a little debate talk from Jaquie. I said, Jaquie, get ready to talk about handshake gate, all right? Everybody's like, you got to take a stand. Was Elizabeth right? Was Bernie right? Should we just forget about it? We don't have any Bernie bros coming in today, D.
Bernie broless.
No Bernie bros, except for kind of you. But other than that, that's it. No Bernie Bros today, man. I'm kind of missed the Bernie Bros. But tomorrow, Miles will be in here, all right? So we'll have a Bernie Bro in. So no Bernie Bros today, but a lot of political talk ahead. But before we do any of that, the young man from Alton, the man everybody now calls Dr. Doobie, with the news.
How's it going, everybody? Before we get going with the local news, let's go to the YouTube live stream chat. Yes, last night, the big debate. What's so funny? Why are you smiling? What's the look on your face for?
Because you didn't deny that you're Dr. Doobie.
Oh, because I've decided to take the advice from one of our live stream chatters. I believe it was Kyle who said it. I'm going to embrace
my inner
Dr. Doobie.
Why?
So I'm rolling with it, all right? That's my 2020 resolution.
You're rolling with the Doobie?
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
Catch us both at Zany's this weekend. Be good times. The debate was last night. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it if you're listening live right now. Brianna weighed in. She says, I have to say, I think E. Warren has my vote. I liked what she had to say last night. Plus, I need somebody to cancel my student loans.
Listen, E. Warren is number 2 on my list right now. She's number 2. And Bernie's still number 1. But, there's still time. I thought E. Warren was pretty strong last night, D.
Oh, and also YouTube live stream watchers, sorry about that earlier. I didn't hit go live, so that's why no one saw us there, that whole opening, the song of the day. Oh, guys, you didn't get to hear the song of the day. Ben, hit him with the song of the day. We don't want to deprive him of that.
All right, song of the day, right. So the song of the day today is the 1973 Tom Waits version.
And for our downloaders, you don't get to hear this. We do a song of the day at the beginning of the show on the live stream. Ben, go ahead.
Okay, and so it's called Old 55, and I'm really into this song. I loved it when it first came out.
Singing it.
Freeway, cars and trucks. The Eagles did their own version of it, but I'm just here, I'm going to stick my neck out and say it, D. Tom Waits' version is far superior.
And let's hear your Tom Waits version.
Hey, you doing that? Tom Waits. I smoked too many cigarettes.
Is Tom Waits from Brooklyn?
I just start thinking Bernie, $27. That's my imitation of Dennis's imitation. It was yesterday. We did I think it was the bonus with Danny. So I did a Bernie, was it with, I can't remember. I did my Bernie imitation, and there's like a polite, strained, embarrassed smile, like, that sucks. And I go, well, I'm really imitating Dennis, imitating Bernie. So I looked at Dennis, he did his Bernie imitation. Oh my God, that's great.
It's not that great.
Come on, one more time.
10%. That's all it is.
10%, $27.
All right, so please weigh in with your thoughts on last night's debate. We'll try to read those comments as today's program.
Weigh in. Which one do you think is better, Tom Waits or the Eagles? 55. I think most of you will have to agree with me. Tom Waits is far superior to the Eagles version.
I agree with our brand new live stream chatter who just weighed in by the name Supervisor Clinical. ACK. No song is ever needed.
Supervisor's tough, man. Yeah. Hence the name, Supervisor.
No
so
kidding.
Used to bossing people around.
Are you our boss? Are you the boss of the Sun-Times? Are you our boss right now?
Supervisor, no songs.
Sit up straight.
I am the supervisor. Sit up straight. Hold on. I drink my water.
All right, now let's find out what's happening in Chicago and/or Illinois this afternoon. And Ben, that certificate you got from the City Club of Chicago last year may not be worthless after all. I'm glad we didn't pitch it. The mayor defended the City Club recently. More on that in moments, but first, no public event scheduled for our Illinois Governor, J.B. Pritzker. So, obviously, he'll be listening to the Ben Joravsky show. Now, I don't see him in the live stream chat room right now. So
no, he's supervisor.
He made. Oh my God!
JB.
Are you? Is that you, J.B. Pritzker?
Yeah, that's JB. He's not gonna come. I'm JB. He goes, I'm supervisor.
No songs ever needed. So, okay, sorry if you're listening, JB. Sorry about that impression there. But so obviously he's going to be listening. He's going to be listening on the download. I imagine he's going to be downloading. So, Ben, since he's listening, is there anything that you'd like to say to JB Pritzker?
Well, I know he's steaming mad at me right now.
Why?
All right, because as you know, J.B. Pritzker's a huge fan of the Eagles.
And
I've already trashed the Eagles.
Oh, my God.
The Eagles version of Old 55 sucks.
So he's just hit stop. He stopped listening.
He's so mad right now, okay? He's on the phone with Lori Lightfoot. Can you believe this? Tom Waits? The Eagles put a melody into it. I can't believe this guy.
So I believe, do you have an apology for J.B. Pritzker?
Well, we just don't see eye to eye on it. I mean,
okay.
I'm sorry I insulted your beloved Eagles, but their version is just not as good as Tom Waits. Have you ever seen The Big Lebowski, by the way?
Yes.
One of the greatest movies. Probably, arguably, I think even Supervisor will agree with me on this one. Big Lebowski is the greatest stoner movie of all time. And there's that scene where Jeff Bridges gets into the cab and the cab driver is listening to the Eagles. He's like, could you just take the Eagles off? I can't deal. And the cab driver throws him out.
Well, somehow your message to JB Pritzker wound up on Big Lebowski. So we're just going to move on.
Anyway, I know JB's a little upset right now because I trash his beloved Eagles. But come on, JB. Just between you and me, Tom Waits' version is superior to the Eagles.
All right, moving on. Today, our Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot presided over the first Chicago City Council meeting of the new year.
And the first one since reefer's legal in this city of Chicago, state of Illinois.
Oh, which alderman showed up baked.
Which, oh, yeah, man. I am not going to throw any of my beloved aldermen under the bus, so we'll just let that one go.
Probably Rose. All right, the mayor met with the aldermen of the city to talk business. Now, we learned last year that every now and again these meetings can get a bit dramatic and go off the rails. And it turns out that makes great podcasting content. So, yes, we are going to continue our city council meeting coverage into the new year. And typically on city council meeting day, the updates pour in throughout the show, and we will be providing you with those updates. We have one update so far, and not that dramatic, really. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and the one and only Fran the Woman Spielman. By the way, check out the Fran Spielman podcast every week. Chicago Sun-Times.
Here in this studio.
Right here in this studio. She talks with the movers and shakers of Chicago. Had an interview with Cullerton.
I was just going to say, for 10 trivia points. Now, for 10 trivia points, who's your next interview?
Oh, I don't know the name.
Well, come on.
I'm recording it tomorrow. I forgot the name of the person. But, hey, that Cullerton interview is something. Huh? Turns out he has a history of the Second City.
Yeah, he's okay. Am I allowed to let a little secret out here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so John Cullerton, who was the former Senate... I think he technically is still the Senate president, is he? But he's retiring from the Senate.
Very soon.
Very soon, and stepping down. He's reputedly is a great comic with impressions and impersonations and stuff. And we were both supposed to do it. We were going to appear at a roast of the great TC, Terry Cosgrove. And I was very nervous because I had to go on before him. And he had this legend, the legendary roast. Okay? I had to go before him. Remember, I'm nervous. Like, well, I got to go after before Cullerton. Are you kidding me? The great Cullerton. I would have held my own in that one. Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. All right, but he did an imitation of Daly.
Yeah,
I saw it. I can't. I'm
Was
not,
it better than I don't know, any impression you've ever done?
Yes, I'm terrible. I admit it. Dennis, on the other hand, he's not going to do it, and I gets really upset. But like, I could just go this person, that person, this person, and he could do all those impressions, right? Like D, right now, go. Ned Flanders.
I've never done Ned Flanders. I do Marge.
Homie. What's the?
What is this?
Do Millhouse.
Keep going. Oh, Bart. My Millhouse actually isn't bad.
Millhouse is excellent, man.
Hey, Bart.
Do Tom Hartman.
I'm done with the impressions.
Oh, okay. Come on, Hartman, please.
Yeah, Tom Hartman here. You like gold? All right.
Do Antonio.
Stop. We're doing the news.
Oh,
here.
sorry, man.
All right. Now, so we'll be keeping you updated on the, where the hell was I here? All right.
No.
One update so far on the city council meeting.
Oh, yeah. What'd they
Not
do?
that dramatic. The following comes from Fran the Woman Spielman. The city council urged to ban foam food containers and limit plastic forks, knives, and straws. And hey, here's a name we haven't heard in a while. Alderman Scott Wagaspack and his free plastic-free water ordinance would give restaurants and takeout joints until January 1st, 2021 to stop selling or serving food in foam containers or using plastic utensils and straws.
Yeah, why did they need a full year? I mean, good God. How long, seriously, how long do you think you need? I mean, a month? I guess to get through all the back supply or whatever. I don't know. A year?
Chicago restaurants and carryout places would be prohibited from using foam containers and required to provide plastic straws and food utensils only on request under a sweeping ordinance proposed by a top mayoral ally Wednesday to curb plastic pollution. All right, Ben, if you could, please grab that certificate you
Oh, yeah.
got
Hold
from
on one
speaking at the
second.
City
Hold on.
Club of Chicago. Now, last year I had Ben go to the event at the City Club, and it was before all the shady business came out. Oh, and he's okay. He's feeling it today. All right. So earlier in the week, Lori Lightfoot spoke at the City Club during a Fraternal Order of Police event before introducing the headliner, Charlie Beck. Lightfoot addressed the sold-out crowd of 300, and God bless her, the mayor defended the City Club. Now, Ben, please explain to our listeners who may not know why the City Club needs defended.
All right, City Club. That was City Club Gate. When was that? That was this summer, wasn't it? All right, City Club is this organization of movers and shakers in downtown Chicago that gets together, I don't know, every other week or every month. I don't know how. And they have guest speakers, and it's a very enlightened group of big shots, okay? And it's kind of, I'm not saying I hold a grudge against them because like 50 years went by and they never invited me, but finally, I guess they were so desperate, they invited me to come speak in a panel group, and they gave me this certificate. All right, I was like, oh, yeah, man, I made it. I was late to the show that day. Remember, D? Mm-hmm. I was late to the show because I spoke at the City Club.
I thought it was worth it.
And yeah, it was...
We never go out and do any events for the show. This is the one.
Okay, that is not true. Don't say never. I mean, never is a big word. Anyway,
You're right.
I went to the City Club. They gave me this certificate. And then lo and behold, the guy who was the president or the big shot at the City Club, Jay Doherty, got caught up in Commonwealth Edison scandal, the whole federal investigation into Commonwealth Edison, ghost payrolling and connections possibly to my beloved Democratic Party and Michael Joseph Madigan. And the feds came a knocking on the City Club door. I'm like, the City Club is nothing sacrosanct in the city of Chicago. It's nothing exempt from corruption. The City Club they would have these discussions where learned people from Chicago would talk to the assembly about corruption. It was like, they're sort of like, you never heard NPR, the way they talk about sports? It's so ironic. It's like ironic. NPR never wants to admit that the personalities that they like sports. They have to treat it as though so ironic. Sports, sports. You know, like, oh, those silly people love sports. I kind of understand sports, but isn't sports ironic? Anyway, that's kind of how the City Club addresses corruption. Like, just putting aside the fact that they, like, many of the wheelers and dealers and the movers and shakers in the city have been supporting corrupt politicians year after year. I like him. He can get things done. That's how Ed Burke got supported year after year. Richard M. Daley got supported year after year. Anyway, they all pretend like corruption doesn't exist in their world. It's like this little like fantasy world, erotic fantasy world, sort of like NPR talking about sports.
Erotic?
Anyway, ironic.
Oh.
Get your head out of the gutter.
I said erotic. Like,
Oh, my God, you heard it. Well, let's rewind the tape. Now it's like Bernie versus Elizabeth. Did he say it? Ironic. See, clear as day. Anyway, so they gave me the certificate. By chance, that week, I had on the show young Danny Mahopoulos, a WBEZ crack reporter who loves sports and is never ironic about it, even though he's on NPR. Anyway, and
unlike Tom Schuba, who's the reefer reporter, you called him a crack reporter. He's not,
ace
doesn't report
reporter,
on
yes.
crack.
Yeah. Tommy Schuba, the best reefer writer in the city of Chicago. Anyway, so they gave me this certificate, and Dan came on to talk about his ongoing investigation into City Club Gate.
And I've been sweating bullets ever since.
Yeah, because what? You thought they were going to investigate us?
Yeah, now you got that certificate.
I
You're
got
involved with them? I don't know. But so luckily,
I had Danny sign it. So I have a Dan Mahopoulos
right.
sign.
well, luckily the mayor is out to defend the City Club. All right, here we have some quotes from Mayor Lightfoot earlier in the week.
Are you going to do your Lori Lightfoot imitation?
No, I'm not doing my Lori Lightfoot imitation. Come on. Lori Lightfoot said, quote, "It's always wonderful to be speaking before the City Club," she told a group of business and nonprofit leaders. "The City Club is a very important forum for our city. We need to make sure this organization remains vital and strong. And I intend to do my part to make that happen." Ben, are we going to do our part to make that happen?
Yeah. I'm 100% behind the City Club, okay? Here's my certificate, all right? There you go. I'm 100% behind the City Club. And I love NPR, even though they treat sports
Oh,
like...
you sound like you really love NPR.
sports. It's a really interesting thing.
You will never hear this show on NPR, by the way. All right.
Never's a big word, dude.
Full circle. All right, it was a clear message. The following comes from Illinois Politico, by the way. It was a clear message to the business and civic leaders that they should return to supporting this organization. Monday's luncheon, Lightfoot loves luncheons, guys. Monday's luncheon was the first big event City Club has had since October, when headlines emerged that the group and its longtime volunteer president and board member, Jay Doherty, had come under scrutiny by the feds. Ben covered all of that. So, Ben, your thoughts here on Lori Lightfoot defending City Club?
You know, I mean, it's good for Lori. Defend City Club. You know, the City Club's been around forever and ever. It's just sort of a tradition. You know, it's the place where anybody can go and give a speech, except for Ben. And, you know, you need places like that, right, D? I just kind of think it's funny that they pretend as though, oh, corruption is this strange thing. I'm hearing about it for the first time. It's really interesting. Sports, how ironic. How ironic that Bears fans like the Bears. Interesting. So, anyway, I got my issues, but I like the City Club. What was that one we used to do? There was a tape. I like puppies. Remember that one?
Oh, we played it yesterday.
Oh, yeah. So that's kind of how I feel about the City Club. I like the City Club.
And for the record, I love puppies.
There we go.
We literally played that yesterday.
Yeah, that's why it's on my mind.
All right, now we're going to you on the Ben Joravsky Show live stream chat. If you listen on the download, boy, you should join in on this live stream that we got going Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel. All right. Oh, Sergio Mims weighed in. Program note. I'll be on the Ben Joravsky Show again Wednesday, January 29th.
Yes, he'll be here talking politics at the first stage, and he's going to stay around, and we're going to have a great Oscar discussion. I am fired. Ramana Hussein will be a part of that discussion as well. It's funny, Sergio, you should hear this. Monroe wants in on the discussion, although he's only seen the Netflix movies. Okay, here he is, Monroe. I just spoke about him, and he showed up. He's only seen Netflix movies. You got to see other movies besides Netflix movies. Sergio Mims has seen every single movie. So has Ramana Hussein. It's going to be a great discussion. You know what we're going to do, D? We're going to tell you who's going to win. So I'm not saying that people should go out and immediately gamble based on what we say. Just saying.
We do not encourage gambling.
That is correct, because it is a sick disease, as anybody who has seen Uncut Gems, which is perhaps the greatest movie of the year, that did not get any Oscar nominations.
And we got confirmation here. Supervisor Clinical is not J.B. Pritzker.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, did JB weigh in?
No, Supervisor Clinical weighed in. Supervisor Clinical says supervising at mental health clinic. Sort of like being at work watching live stream.
All right, cool. All right.
So there you are.
All right.
Let's see here.
To say you were JB Pritzker.
Our good friend Kyle, who I believe it's Kyle's advice, who I'm taking in the new year. I'm embracing the Dr. Doobie. Kyle says, D, all Ben wants to do during this podcast is laugh and clap his hands for entertainment. Oh, boy, you're catching on to the first half hour of the Ben Joravsky Show. All right, let's see here. Kyle also says, Ben is also defending the City Club, too. The proof is literally in his hand. Boy, Kyle is giving you a hard time today.
Oh, come on, I love Kyle.
All right, everybody.
Kyle is listening. We love Kyle. I'm going to send him a certificate.
All right, I'm looking at everybody else's live stream chats here. We'll try to read more of these. Your thoughts on last night's debate. Who won? Who lost? Who is Tom Steyer again? All those questions. Provide your answers, and we'll be reading them on the live stream chat. And, of course, we'll be keeping you posted on today's local stories as our program rolls along. Don't go anywhere. We're taking a break. And if you're on the live stream, you see the man sitting here. It's legendary journalist Monroe Anderson. He's coming up next. It's the Ben Joravsky Show live from the Chicago Sun-Times. The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by Northwestern University's part-time master's program in literature and liberal studies. Students learn from dynamic and diverse faculty as they build advanced skills for critical analysis, writing, and research. Evening classes are held on Northwestern's Evanston and Chicago campuses. The spring quarter application deadline is January 15th. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/masters.
Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. Jeff. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
And welcome back to Monroe Anderson. It's been 3 weeks, Monroe.
Yes.
It's been 3 weeks. We had New Year's, we had Christmas, and then last week I had a reader retreat, so we didn't do a show. So welcome back. Did you have a good holiday and everything?
I had a good holiday, good 3 weeks rest.
Now you're ready to
Yeah,
go?
because I didn't have to pay nearly as much attention to this stuff. So I watched movies, I watched TV shows, entertainment.
Yeah. He saw the movie 1917. That's part of his logic for why he should be included with Sergio Mims.
Exactly.
I tell you what, you've never...
see, the difference between Sergio and me is I remember and understand the plots after I've seen it.
Ouch. All right, Sergio, he'll be on next week to defend himself. As we were coming into the studio today, Congress was debating the articles of impeachment that they have formally sent to the Senate.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. But first, I got to get your opinion about something. This is the front page story in the Chicago Sun-Times. And Monroe is a journalist. He's worked for the Tribune. He's worked for the Sun-Times. He worked for Ebony. He's worked for Newsweek. So he's been around the block in journalism, but he also has had a stint as press secretary to Mayor Eugene Sawyer back in 89 to 91, I want to say. I always like to get you...
He was only in office for
2 years.
18 months.
18 months. Yeah, from 80. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So City Hall contract drama. This is an interesting story. Get your thoughts on this. The Sun-Times is very concise. Mayor Lightfoot wants to look into giving LGBT-owned businesses a leg up, but some aldermen, citing the movie I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, fear it'll lead to fraud and fewer opportunities for people of color. I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry is one of the worst Adam Sandler movies ever made. But in that movie, Adam Sandler and who was the other guy? Kevin
James.
Kevin James pretend they're gay so they can take advantage of some... like a job, or you get they get preferential treatment to gay people. Anyway, it's a really stupid movie. So your thoughts on this? I'm all over the map on this one. What is your thoughts? Would you advise Mayor Eugene Sawyer to pass such a thing, or if you were Lori Lightfoot's press secretary, would you advise her to champion an ordinance like that?
No. It's a bad idea on at least two fronts. First of all, there's enough fraud and corruption in Chicago. Why open the door and turn the cameras off? First of all. Secondly, when you look at the sheer numbers, there are more blacks in Chicago than there are lesbians and gays, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And if she gets away with this, she's going to alienate the black community. and she's not going to get not all the black community, but enough of it where she's not going to get the votes she needs for reelection. But of course, considering all the challenges she has, maybe that's her plan.
Oh my goodness, you are really that's even more cynical than I usually go. I'm all over the map. I hear what you're saying about potential fraud. Although they in the article they quote experts saying that in California, where they have such a program, there's minimal fraud, and so it's difficult. My chief reservation is this: contract set-asides have been around for a long time, largely to deal with the inequities that have existed forever in the city of Chicago, dealing with black people in our city, and getting the short end of the stick for as long as I can remember. And it's like, it seems like they'll do anything to avoid dealing with this issue. Do you follow what I'm saying, Monroe Anderson?
No. See, that's another thing now. I don't expect you to know this, but I did, one of the 4 Pulitzer nominations I have is for an investigation we did in 1978 on fronts for set-asides.
This was at the Tribune.
Mm-hmm. At the Tribune. And at that time, what we exposed was that Noah Robinson, Jesse Jackson's half-brother, was the biggest front man in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
He was making like all kinds of money by pretending that his company was involved with these construction companies. Mm-hmm. And basically, his name was on the contract, and he was getting paid something, but no black people were getting jobs out of it. And it's an easy enough thing to do. If you were in business and I was not an honest man, and you came to me and said, "Monroe, how much do you love me?" And I say, "Oh, Ben, you're so cute. Let me sign on the line. Give me $100,000, and we'll forget about it."
So, in other words, you're saying that this program would even be more vulnerable to fraud.
Yeah, it's easier. You know, I mean, it's either you're black or you're not black. But
well, I hear you. This is and then the fact that they're doing a study. They're going to do a study about it. So this is also kind of a way of just sort of.
And plus, well, the other thing is
classic Chicago.
Now, I'm not an expert on LGBT people, but I wasn't aware that there was any particular discrimination against them in business versus other minorities.
Well, there's the whole issue of people who blatantly and openly won't serve openly gay people. That's what the wedding cake gate in Indiana and in Colorado, and both cases went to the Supreme Court, and so the Republican Party stipulates that there is a religious right, that people have a religious right to discriminate against gay people when it comes to services and stuff. So it's an important issue.
Yeah, it's important, and I'm familiar with that part, but
the other part,
I'm thinking about business.
Yeah, in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, where they may not even know. There's no reason for them to know that you're gay.
All right, let's move on to the other issues of the day, and that big issue, of course, is impeachment. As I was coming to the studio, I was listening to the debate, and I had my open mind, Monroe. Okay, I'm very open-minded. So by chance, when I was listening to the debate, it was mostly Republicans talking.
Yeah.
Your favorite Congressman Kevin McCarthy from California was talking.
Well, I think I like Nunes and Collins even.
Collins from Georgia. Yeah, right. Doug Collins from Georgia. Right, I heard him, and a very enlightening debate that they were accusing the Democrats of playing politics. They were accusing the Democrats of having a grudge against Donald Trump because they just don't like him.
Right.
And
they never tell you why, but they just tell you they don't like him.
They just don't like him.
And they didn't like him until he became president.
They don't say that. So what was your response to the debate?
I've heard it all before. I mean, throughout the entire impeachment hearings in the House, they made the same points. They've made those points over and over and over again. As you know, I fight with right wingers on Facebook.
Yes, you do.
One of my Facebook frenemies posted something today about all the great accomplishments Trump has made, which I don't particularly consider accomplishments, but for them they are.
What did he put on there?
Well, it's the lies about how more jobs, lower black unemployment, on and on and on. Basically, it's Obama's accomplishments that Trump has co-opted, and now they give him all the credit for.
Because you're saying that the economic rebirth, the economic rejuvenation began under Obama.
Yes,
it's carried on into
right.
Trump.
And when you match them up, job for job, Obama actually has produced more jobs than Trump has.
Well, let's rephrase that.
Yeah.
More jobs were produced during the Obama years than during the Trump years. I've always had an aversion, Monroe, to giving credit to the President of the United States. There's fluctuation, for whatever fluctuation we're going through in the economy. Yeah. So I understand that in general, most people in this country don't do that. They're like, well, I got a job. I'm going to vote for this president.
Yeah. Well, but it's like a TV weatherman or something. They have no control over what the weather is like, but people get a bit upset with them when it's raining or snow or something, and they love them when it's a nice, shiny, sunshiny day.
Yeah.
And the only thing they're doing is giving you the message.
So Trump's message, which I see on your Facebook wall all the time, and it's not just your Facebook wall, but Trump sends it out to deal with the issue of the fact that Trump is so hostile to black people in this country and has just waged Twitter war against prominent black Democrats from the get-go.
And Trump is a racist.
Okay.
I mean, you can't be polite about that. Just for an example, people, they keep forgetting he has one token black on his cabinet. One token black insider within his whole administration.
And that would be?
Uncle Ben.
Ben Carson.
Yes.
I thought I was Uncle Ben. All right.
So you might be somebody's uncle also.
I am somebody's uncle. And
Uncle Ben is all our uncle.
Okay. But whenever people confront Trump with his record on racial issues, he immediately comes back with, there have been more jobs, black jobs created, like a job itself is black.
Right.
And since I've been president, as though he did something in particular to assist black people get jobs. It's kind of, what I'm saying, Monroe?
Oh yeah, no, that's BS. That's what it is. I mean, he takes credit for anything and everything that happens to be good under his watch, and anything that happens to be bad, he blames it on Obama. Now, the thing that's really interesting about him is he has this Obama obsession. Mm-hmm. I mean, the things that he's destroyed, he did it if Obama introduced it.
Well, that is so ironic, given what I heard at the debate, if you call it a debate today, the comments on the floor of the House, where the congressmen were discussing the impeachment articles before they sent them off to the Senate.
Right.
And the talking points that the Republicans made, McCarthy made, Collins made, is that the Democrats had a grudge against Donald Trump from the moment he was elected, and that everything they've done was to tag him with the title of being the impeached president. Everything they've done was to discredit him. I'm listening to these Republicans, and they were saying things like, Monroe, I'll tell you what, if the roles are reversed, we will not do this to a Democrat. Right. And I'm like,
you already did.
You got, and for not just Obama.
Yes.
Billy Clinton.
Oh yeah.
You and I are old enough to know. Remember, they waged war against Bill Clinton.
One of the reasons that Trump is president and Hillary Clinton is not is because the Republicans spent $1 billion over 25 years demonizing the Clintons.
The Clintons.
And so it was easy when the time came for them to turn her into this crook and this and this, all the nasty things they have to say about her.
No, you're you're right. I have to tell you this. That is an excellent point, because even today, when I'm speaking with fellow Democrats, right now on our live stream, I'm sure they're weighing in. There is an aversion to Hillary Clinton, and I hear this across the board now.
Right.
People, Hillary was flawed. Hillary was flawed.
Right.
Like, we even get the issue of, can a woman be elected president? Well, Hillary couldn't, because Hillary was flawed. Hillary is flawed. Right. And it's like, you keep pushing that message
Right.
long enough, consistently enough, and
it becomes a fact.
It becomes a fact.
Right. No, and you know what's really, I mean, because I fought with right-wingers on this issue on Facebook, and the point I make is, yes, Hillary was a flawed candidate, but she was running against the most flawed candidate in American presidential history. I mean, and at the time, everybody was saying, well, neither one of them are liked, but Trump is least liked.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll recall, those 4 years ago, every other week, Trump would do something Trumpian, where the media would say, well, that's the end of his candidacy. Because nobody, right, exactly. You know, and her one thing, the difference between Trump and Hillary was they only had the emails to talk about on her. So they beat that horse to death. Whereas every time Trump did something stupid or terrible, before a full news cycle had passed, he had done something else stupid or terrible.
No.
So it was a moving target with him.
Along to this point, your good old friend John Cass wrote a column today. Interesting. I read John Cass. You know, I like to see what the other side. I always point this out. I read the other side, see what they're saying. Maybe they can convince me, Monroe.
I have high blood pressure, so I can't put myself in danger.
So anyway, the theme of his column is that if Michael Madigan, who is the House Speaker here in Illinois, were a Republican, he'd be removed from office because he is connected to Michael McClain's very complicated scandal that we've been talking a lot about in this show. And there's an email in which McClain alludes to a rape in Champaign, and nobody knows what that rape in Champaign is, right. But it sure looks as though the Democrats were like covering up something bad, like a rape in Champaign. Yeah. We don't know what it is all about. And so John Cass says, if he were a Republican, he'd be out. And I'm like, let me just tell you right now, the leader of the Republican Party, the man that the Republicans pledge their allegiance to, they wear their MAGA hats in deference to, the man who controls the Republican Party with a single tweet, is now facing a lawsuit from a woman who claims he raped her. Right. Donald Trump is an alleged rapist.
And there are 19 others waiting in the wings.
There's 2 defamation lawsuits, I should say, from women who claim.
Exactly. But there are 19, there are 20 women that claim that they were sexually assaulted by Trump.
But see, I give the Republicans credit to a large degree, Monroe. This is how focused they are and how dedicated they are to winning at all costs. On the one hand,
some would call that corrupt.
Well,
and immoral, but you give them credit for it.
I'm giving credit for being consistently immoral and corrupt because it's all about winning.
Yes.
And if you want to control the Supreme Court, you got to win.
Right.
If you want to spend $738 billion, is it, on defense? Of course, the Democrats went along with it. You got to win.
Right.
So on one hand, the Republican Party as having their favorite columnist chiding Michael Madigan for his role, we don't even know what exactly is, to a possible rape case in Champaign.
Right.
And on the other hand, they're supporting the President of the United States, who's been accused by at least 2 women in lawsuits of rape, or sexual assault. One is rape.
No, and who oversees the most corrupt presidential administration in American history.
So I have a really hard time taking Republicans. I'm listening to those arguments that they were making. They were advancing how unfair it was to them.
Oh yeah, right. No, and I slapped them with the truth.
So go back.
Yeah, I slapped them with the truth, and then they come up with another whataboutism. which is what one of their favorite games is that, okay, well, Trump has 20 women who have accused him of sexual assault, but what about Bill Clinton? Yeah, that's the game. So they just shift it.
Yeah.
Instead of just dealing with the fact that Trump is one horrible human being.
Yeah. And what do you say to them when they shift it to Billy Clinton?
That by the time when they shift it, then they go away, because they can't rebut what I say. They just, it's sort of like you've been arguing with somebody and you slam the door.
Well, anyway, one Republican after another stood up on the floor of the House today and accused the Democrats of being unfair. Accused the Democrats.
They did that throughout the impeachment hearing. I mean, and they stuck with the same talking points because they have zero, zilch defense of what Trump has done.
All right. Now, you articulate as best you can what Donald Trump has done that warrants impeachment.
What Donald Trump has done, and more importantly, is doing, is using foreign countries to influence the this year's presidential election. And so what he did with the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, was he pressured him and bribed him bribe him into coming up, either manufacturing or coming up with dirt on the Bidens. And he didn't care. What he wanted was to be able to have Zelensky have a press conference saying that he was investigating Biden for corruption. And then that would have been his talking point from today till November. Just a constant, as he did with Hillary and the email, which a report came out last week that there was nothing to that.
Yeah, yes, which is interesting. Again, the Republicans are on the floor arguing that how unfair the Democrats are, and overlooking the fact that really the war against Hillary Clinton, in particular, was like a year in advance of the 2016 election. Benghazi, the email server, the whole thing was nonstop. And then going back, you're right, go back to the 90s.
Right. We can go back to Whitewater.
Which ultimately led to the investigation the Monica Lewinsky investigation, and led to having evidence that Bill Clinton lied under oath, which was the whole basis of their impeachment.
Right.
So they spent, you're right, 10 years finding the one nugget of information they could use to impeach Clinton.
Right. That he lied about sex.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this is the same Republican Party that is now saying how unfair the Democrats are.
But let me tell you, that there is a bright spot in all of this.
And that is?
Yes. The Republicans have been raising money off the impeachment, tons of money. However, one candidate, presidential candidate, Mike Bloomberg, or Mini Mike, as Trump is now calling him, has pledged to spend as much of his billions as he chooses to against Trump, even if he doesn't get the nomination until November. He's gotta have his people. And while they got money, the Republicans do, they don't have Bloomberg money.
They got a lot of money, Monroe.
Yeah, right. But
and Bloomberg has to spend it wisely. But I hear what you're saying. I absolutely hear what you're saying.
Bloomberg is worth $50 billion.
Wow.
The Republicans are not going to raise $50 billion
No, well, Bloomberg's not going to spend $50 billion. He says he'll spend $1 billion.
No. He's not put a limit on it.
Oh, he has not?
He has not. He's taken a limit. Yeah, no.
He took that off?
Yeah, right. He's going to go. He's going for the gusto.
Well, there's a lot of campaign commercials. And he did say, I saw this, we'll be talking to Samina Mustafa about this. He said that he would be airing these commercials bashing Trump, even if he, Michael Bloomberg, was not the nominee. And furthermore, even if the nominee were Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, whose left of center positions he, Michael Bloomberg, disagrees with.
Exactly.
Bloomberg, to call Bloomberg a centrist is, I guess that's where it's kind of misleading. He's a Republican. He was a Democrat, then he was a Republican, and now he's a Democrat again.
Well, then for a minute he was an independent. He's
he was. He's been all over.
The place. Yeah,
But one thing, he has a strong aversion to Donald Trump. He gave a speech. I thought it was a compelling speech at the Democratic Convention in 2016. I don't know if you saw it, on behalf of Hillary Clinton. Where he said, "I'm the real deal. I'm a real billionaire. I'm from New York. Let me tell you, Donald Trump is no good, and he's not and he really attacked him as a businessman, attacking Donald Trump's business record. That was his purpose of that speech.
Exactly. No, because Trump is, if it weren't for the Russians, Trump would be out on the streets.
You have been saying that for 3 years. Well, explain to people what you mean by that.
The Trump. A terrible businessman. Depending on how it's counted, he's been bankrupt 4 or 6 times. One of those times he got bankrupt was in the late 80s, early 90s with his gambling casinos. And because he has this bad habit of not paying anybody back when he owes money. He goes into court and drags it out, as he's doing with this impeachment now, and says that he doesn't owe them. It's a hoax that he owes them the money, etc. He drags it out in court. I mean, he has 3,000 court cases that either he's been initiated or a subject of in his career, his life.
Wow, 3,000.
Right. Anyway, so he gets in trouble. American banks will not loan him money because he doesn't pay it back. And it's a bad credit risk. Deutsche Bank, which is owned by the Russians, come in for the rescue. And then he started laundering rubles. And he's been doing that since. And they, as a result of that, they love them some Trump.
Monroe, my lefty friends, when they hear stuff like this, they don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying?
They don't want to hear that Trump is
they feel as though it's, how do I put it? I wish we had one in here to defend. Maybe Sameena will do it. I've had so many different people come in here, and it's not that they defend Trump's business practices, but
they're so far left that they like Ruskies.
Well, no, it's not that. Okay, it's that they feel as though it's not going to turn the tides in the election. It won't be the reason voters in Wisconsin go for the Democrat. And so it just doesn't make sense to keep pounding it.
Except it's a fact. And what it does is underscore how corrupt and crooked the bad is. And so you don't pretend, okay, well, forget about that. Forget about the 3 wives. Forget about his New York campaign corruption, paying off Stormy Daniels and the play.
And the other reason is, I'm with you 100%, by the way. And I bring David Ferris on. He's coming on today, the Roosevelt University professor who talks about how this are issues that the Democrats should champion. I'm with you guys 100% on this stuff. The other thing is, I do believe this, and this gets back to what I started the show talking about. We're going to talk about it more when Sameena comes in, last night's feud between Bernie and Elizabeth. Democrats, or people left of center, love to fight with each other. And they view what you're talking about as a remnant from Hillary Clinton's campaign, and they don't like Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And I've like Democrats who dislike Hillary Clinton more than they dislike Donald John Trump.
Right.
And Conversely, Samina Mustafa has entered the building. Samina Mustafa has entered the building. Conversely, I know Democrats, and I hope she's listening to me because we're going to take a break and get her thoughts on what I'm about to say. So, conversely, I know Democrats who are madder at each other than they are at Donald Trump. Hillary people who are madder at the Bernie faction than they are at Donald Trump.
Right. You know what's
And I'm not sure the centrists of the Democratic Party will embrace Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren if they're the nominees, because they'll be carrying on their ancient fight with the lefties. They've been saying for 30 years that we shouldn't listen to lefties.
Right. Well, there are a couple of sayings. First of all, about Republicans versus Democrats.
Yes.
Republicans fall in line.
Yes.
Democrats fall in love.
Yes.
And then the other thing is the difference with the Republicans and Democrats is the Republicans are quick to go in lockstep, whereas Democrats are independent thinkers, and so they're like trying to round up cats.
Yeah. No, all right. We're going to take a break. Samina Mustafa is shaking her head. I don't know if she's shaking or nodding her head, but she's ready to jump into this conversation.
She's happy to see me.
Yeah, and so we're going to bring Samina on. We'll be talking, following up this conversation. We'll take the deep dive in the debate. We'll talk about handshake gate. We'll talk about all the issues of the day. We'll be right back with Monroe and Samina.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
Let's talk about the debate tonight. You worked for Presidents Clinton and President Obama. I'm sure you did a lot of debate prep for those two guys. Who got close to their level tonight? Who impressed you on stage?
You know, President Obama had, yes, we can.
Yep.
President Clinton had, as you know, put people first. We have, damn it, I wrote the bill. So that's kind of the closest.
You think Bernie last night had the best moment of the two nights?
No, I think here's
endorsing Bernie. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that will not help Bernie right now, given his base. So here's what I think. I think Democrats love to fall in love. Mm-hmm. Republicans fall in line. Mm-hmm. And we're not yet in love. We're still dating. And that's the process right now.
Okay.
There's a lot more debates. Mm-hmm. And we're going to still date.
How many more dates before?
A while.
Really?
Nobody's ready to come. Nobody's ready to come home and see the in-laws yet.
No one's gonna jumping in the sack after tonight.
No. We got a while. I see you and I and everybody. We love this every inch. We're measuring every 25 yards, etc. This is a marathon.
All right, everybody, stop talking about movies. We're back.
No movie talk, huh, D?
Your Ben Joravsky Show.
All right.
Hour number 2 for Wednesday, January 15th. It's just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions for jumping on board and sponsoring this program. Unions like the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, and of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2, let's go. It is Wednesday, January 15th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, we still got Monroe Anderson in studio. Our good friend Samina Mustafa is back, and we're going to be talking all things last night's debate. And we welcome Jaquie Algee of SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
I'm so excited about having Samina Mustafa on the show. She's really one of the smart minds in Chicago on national politics. And people go, where's Letisa? Usually Letisa Wallace comes on. Where's Letisa? Letisa texted me she couldn't make it. She had some previous engagement or something.
Miss you, Letisa.
Yeah, so next time Letisa will be here. Do you got an update before I pick Samina's brain?
Letisa, we miss you.
Yeah, we miss
you. All right, we're talking all things last night's debate. Who won? Who lost? Who's Tom Steyer? So many questions, and we're going to try and answer them. I don't know who won or who lost, but I tell you who I think maybe lost. CNN. Good Lord, CNN is getting trashed on Twitter.
CNN is trash has been trending all day. All day.
CNN is trash has been trending all throughout Twitter. I'll read a few of these tweets that people have been putting here. Like this guy, Robert. We have no clue who Robert is. Robert put the hashtag CNN is trash and put, typically I wouldn't watch hashtag CNN is garbage or hashtag CNN is trash or any of those hashtags. I've been watching CNN on a regular or weekly basis at least for a long time now, and I didn't watch the debate last night. But after reading and watching videos, it seems like CNN had a bad night. That was one of the nicer ones that's going around Twitter. So many people, CNN is trash. Ben, I'll throw the question to you. Is CNN trash?
Well, I was actually going to throw that question at Samina. How do I put this? These debates are all kind of the same in my mind, Samina. The way the questions are framed, where they come from, the role that the reporters or whatever they are, personalities play, is that of somebody from the right. So they're always questioning the Democrats as though are you electable is essentially what they're saying. Like, for instance, when they talk about foreign policy, how can you protect our people from ISIS? Is like a foreign policy question. I'm thinking, what control does any freaking president have over ISIS? You know what I'm saying? I just going on and on. I'm like, but that's how they frame it. They frame it like, we should be scared at the thought that you would replace our powerful leader in chief. What has he done to protect us against anybody? Anyway, that's just me riffing. What's your
No, I think, and as if you and I have talked, and as we've recapped these debates now for what it seems like 10 years, there's a conceit which is always, and there's that tension that the moderators are always trying to create. So they either want, again, as you said, sort of use Republican talking points to frame everything, whether it's healthcare, military, anything, and then they want the candidates to go at each other. So they set up fights every single time. This is consistent, and they did it yesterday. And I was saying to you earlier on the phone that this debate, being a smaller field, 2 hours, which I think is more than enough time. There was an opportunity to make it really substantive, but they, as I think I said, Wolf is going to blitz, and so that's what they did. They created this tension, this chaos, and really and the one issue that they consistently argue in bad faith is healthcare. And there's never been a really good conversation or policy debate on healthcare because it's always a sort of, how are you going to pay for it? And as people rightfully point out, whenever they ask about, whether it's foreign policy, anything to do with defense spending, that question never comes up. The question never comes up. So I just think that these are, there's a real problem, and this is the issue with, and you're going to probably see next to CNN's trash corporate media, hashtag, corporate media is trash, mainstream media, or something to that effect. I mean, they're all getting advertising dollars from those companies, the drug companies and the insurance companies and hospital systems, and let's be clear, defense contractors on all the Sunday talk shows. So,
Sameena, it's the national equivalent of the local debate, which I write about all the time, and that goes like this. When the teachers union goes on strike asking for more resources to be dedicated to nurses and social workers, everyone in Chicago turns into a CPA. The powers that be in Chicago are suddenly CPAs as they scrutinize the budget. How many nickels and dimes will nurses cost for some poor black kid in a school? Right. But when Amazon wants to come to town with its big paw out for a handout to build some office building in the North Loop, money is no limit.
Right.
We still don't even know the details of the contract that Mayor Rahm and Governor Rauner offered to Amazon. It's the same thing. When Bernie or Elizabeth Warren kind of pulled away from the debate, that's something we should talk about. It's almost like she feels she's been intimidated on this issue. Mm-hmm. But when Elizabeth Warren or Bernie in the past have presented their neat position on health care for all, immediately, how are you going to pay for it? And Biden and Klobuchar and Buttigieg, they all come at him on that issue.
Right. And I think this is where I think Bernie and Warren could have done a better job, is really push back on. And I think Bernie might have said it at some point, and the numbers, change, have sort of, there's anywhere between 30 and 45,000 people die a year because they don't have health insurance. And that's not reflecting even, the people who are underinsured and maybe deferring healthcare or drugs. And so, it's with their sort of false narrative, you can push back and say, well, how many deaths do you want to be responsible for? I mean, there's a way to do it and push back hard. And they kind of never go there. But I think, again, the conceit of these debates is always, the progressives versus the centrists. And somehow Biden always, he always is sort of unfocused and says things that sound bizarre and nobody follows up. And I also noticed that he didn't get cut off. He also did something he did actually in the very first debate, which is he cut himself off.
Yeah.
And I think that's because he frankly doesn't have a lot to say.
Well, it came out a week or two ago that he's a stutterer. And so he starts things and he has to compose himself. This is why he speaks so slowly and what have you, because otherwise he'd be talking like this. And he doesn't want to do that, so he's doing that. I think, and Bernie did.
But that doesn't affect how substantive his response can be.
Yeah, I know. But there was not a lot of substance going on last night at all. And it really frustrated me because rather than argue over how much health care is going to cost or how many people it's going to deal with, because there's a dime's worth of difference between the candidates that were up there on that stage overall. Every last one of them should have bridged from whatever the question was to Trump. And they should have spent that time attacking Trump and whatever the question was, saying, but this is how Trump has done it, and this is the damage is done, or this is the campaign promise he did not make. They all should have been doing that instead of trying to distinguish who was half an inch taller than who in the crowd.
I think they should. Some candidates did that, but again, the setups from the moderators were very much about Democrats fighting Democrats because
Yeah,
that's what they want.
But see, a
good candidate.
a good candidate, somebody worthy of leading
Right.
our country, would bridge from that.
Absolutely.
Because you could ask me, or did you quit beating your wife last night or something, and my answer was never did. However, I think that women should have better centers for those who are beaten by their husbands. I mean, you can.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
bridge
pivot.
that.
Yeah, you get
pivot
coached.
from that. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you get coached.
And they should have done that. Every last one of them. I mean, first of all, I don't think Iowa's going to count that much in terms of who becomes president or who doesn't. We're going to now, I think it's all shifting to Super Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And when Bloomberg comes in with all his money, and I think we got a different dynamic going on this year. We'll see.
So, I mean, before I let this point drop, and we move on to other things, do you think that CNN is any worse than any of the other networks that have hosted debates or any of the other news operations? I mean, everybody's trashing CNN today, and I'm just wondering, in your opinion, but thanks to me, you've dutifully watched every single debate, and I thank you for that. But do you think CNN's any worse?
So I will say I was shocked at how bad the PBS NewsHour was in between breaks, how terrible their sort of commentary was. I didn't think anyone could be worse than MSNBC or CNN, and they proved me wrong. So I thought theirs was quite bad. One other thing I want to say more globally, kind of stepping back from the CNN and the sort of the cage match that CNN set up, is that let's remember there was not a single candidate of color on this stage. They did not, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't recall a substantive conversation on immigration, on reproductive choice. I mean, was there something on criminal justice? I mean, did I miss that one?
No, right. No, you're right. But the thing that amazes me most is that the story about Parnas and Giuliani and the memos and emails that they have that broke last night was not questioned. It was not discussed at all.
So here's my thinking about all this, and get your reaction. The moderators for every single network, that's why I say CNN is no better or worse than them, have all worked from the assumption that every Democrat agrees with what Sameena is going to say about women's choice, let's say, okay? But the election will turn on whether Trump voters in Michigan will flip to a Democrat. So they don't even bring up abortion. It's like the issue doesn't exist because that's not going to be the issue, in their humble opinion, that will get a Trump voter to flip. They want to confront the concerns that they think a Trump voter would have over foreign policy. Will we be safer that's the underlying bias.
And that's the fallacy, because the Trump voters are not going to flip.
No, exactly.
They're not going to flip. So what the Democrats need to be doing is going out and talking to black people in particular, other minorities, encouraging more of them to show up. Because Trump wouldn't be president today if African Americans in Detroit, in Philadelphia, and in Milwaukee showed up in the numbers that they showed up for Obama. That is, he wouldn't have won those electoral college votes, and so Hillary would have been president. Mm-hmm. They need to bring out their people that are there, that are with them, that support them, instead of chasing the ever elusive white man.
Well, the closest thing we got to this issue last night was when, I can't remember which moderator, which questioner, asked Mayor Pete to address the fact that he has such small support among black voters.
Right.
And That was it. That's the closest they got to
Yeah.
dealing with this.
Yeah, and to dovetail what Monroe was saying, yes, absolutely. Talking to the base, bringing up these issues reminds voters who are the natural Democratic base that that these candidates care about it, and if there is any nuance or difference amongst those candidates, where it is, if it's anywhere. So it really is reminding, yes, we care about this, and here's what we're going to do about it. Because we're in 2020. We've had 7 years post Shelby versus Holder. 34 states have voter ID laws. 34 states.
Talk about Shelby versus Holder. Just
so
help
that's
people
the
out.
Supreme Court case where basically, I think it was Justice John Roberts who basically destroyed the voting rights protection that we had. So it was like, again, I'm not an attorney, but it basically took away the federal oversight and led to this
from the discriminatory states.
Yeah, so if you have a history, if you have a history of discriminating based on race, then you will be the Justice Department will actually be over your shoulder, and you can't just change the laws willy nilly.
Yeah.
Well,
that treat you like a black woman,
and that opened the floodgates.
And
Wisconsin's a perfect example of that.
Yeah,
Think about
exactly.
They just, there was a court decision that just came out in the last, I want to say 24 to 48 hours that actually stopped that voter purge in Wisconsin. And so it looks like it's not going to go through in this cycle. But that doesn't mean there aren't barriers to voting in Wisconsin.
It won't wait. Time out. I've not
So
read
that
the details.
purge, it's about 200,000 voters.
200,000 voters kicked off the rolls.
Yeah.
It's kicked off the rolls. So so again, going to your point, that yes, you have to. I agree with Monroe. You have to animate your base instead of trying to flip those 5, Obama Trump voters, this mythological unicorn that they keep going after, and so there's that, and so that's why you cover those things. But again, reporters and the moderators of these debates like to create tension, and that is what they're there for. But again, that's not what animates the base. Now, at some point, I think there were a couple of different candidates that did do what Monroe said, that they pivoted, or they tried to say, these are the things that I'm hearing. Like Amy Klobuchar always has kind of a hokey little anecdote that she likes to throw in. But I mean, like, sometimes we just have to remind people, like, yes, you've actually spent some time in Iowa or talked to a voter or two. So, I mean, not everybody does it as elegantly as some others, but that's what you have to remind people. Yes, we hear you. We're doing the work. We're spending the time. And so, like, conversations about foreign policy tend to be really just gotcha moments. Like, you said this, and it's they're gonna be played over and over again in either a Trump commercial, a GOP super PAC commercial. I mean, and again, it is a false narrative. Trump has no idea what he's doing on foreign policy.
Zero.
He has no idea what he is doing. The State Department is gutted. I mean, you have, and even DOD doesn't even seem to want to, like, the jingoists are like, hold up, which is kind of insane. But if you looked at when, all these shenanigans, I think like defense stocks went through the roof, and they're having a field day. You've got record military budgets. This is not an anti-war president, okay? So, like, that whole Maureen Dowd, Donald the Dove, Hillary the Hawk. Mm-hmm. Yes, Hillary is hawkish. Donald is not a dove. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Like, but guess what? Going to war is bipartisan. Expanding military budgets is bipartisan. And I can't remember which of the moderators asked it, but they asked Biden about the fact that they didn't go to Congress when they did actions, and then Biden used the authorization to use military force, which famously Barbara Lee was the sole vote against that Bernie Sanders keeps reminding us, and I think he's trying to kiss up to her to get that endorsement. But I mean, like, let's be clear that it is bipartisan obsession with going to war.
And Biden's hands are not bloodless either.
No, they're
war.
not.
Well, Bernie voted, he acknowledged last night that he voted for authorization for the invasion of Afghanistan.
Right.
And then he distinguished that vote from his vote against the invasion of Iraq.
Yeah.
A more compelling argument could be made for the invasion of Afghanistan. I remember the debate, and Barbara Lee was the only one who stood up and voted no.
Right.
Right,
And-
because she anticipated how it would be
Yes.
used.
Right.
Absolutely. And people forget the fervor in this country in the aftermath of 9/11, the war fervor in this country, and we're still not completely out of it. Here we are 20 years later or so.
Well, I think we're pretty much out of it. I mean, for one thing, one of the next victims in Afghanistan, killed of our people, soldiers in Afghanistan, won't have been born when that war started.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay, but the reason I say we're not out of it, because the question last night at the foreign policy question, which I still can't get over, is, if you say you want to leave Iraq, I can't remember which person asked it. You say you want to leave Iraq. If we leave Iraq, ISIS will come back. So what do you say to people who are worried about ISIS coming back? I'm like,
Yeah, no.
so we're still dealing with this issue left over from Bush. Bush raised that issue back in 2002 or 3. Go ahead.
Right. And I think there's this is without really, I'm not going to precisely answer your question, but I'm going to ask us to take a step back. What people don't know enough because of debates like this where things are framed with little to no history and no context. People don't understand the history of the U.S. in the Middle East and containment and how much of these actions in the Middle East in particular have been proxy wars, and how the U.S. and Saudi Arabia
and
have
about oil.
Yeah, exactly, and about oil. But it's the fact that we have Saudi Arabia as an ally, versus Iran. I think people don't quite fully understand it. So to present it in a debate like this without a lot of context, and again, all it's really trying to do is to say, I can be as tough on the Middle East, I can be tough on crime, essentially, as a global cop. That's exactly what it is. That's all it is I can be tough like the GOP. For some reason, the GOP has now sort of owned the military. I was actually asking a veteran about this a couple of years ago, and it's this obsession that the Democrats have. It's why they go nuts for anyone who's running who's a veteran, because they want to be able to show we're good on defense, we're good on national security. But all of that they have proven is that they make the same mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. See, and the problem is they can't tell the truth.
Right.
In that,
Who can't tell the truth?
our politicians, our candidates.
No.
Because
Yeah, I know. You're right.
Iran is at war with us because of what we did back in the 50s.
Right.
When we deposed a democratically elected leader and installed the Shah of Iran, who set up a police state and was very oppressive, but did what we wanted him to do, what the U.S., the oil companies wanted him to do. And it was not until 79 when they had their revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still, they're fighting a war with us. It's a proxy war mainly, and it's not a hot war, not a cold war, something in between. But but they are trying to get rid of us because we're impacting the way they want to run their country.
That is Monroe Anderson, Samina Mustafa in the studio as well. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We're going to talk about handshake gate. We'll be right back.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Boy, he loves that piano player. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
All right, Samina, before we address the issue of Handshake Gate, I was negligent. I did not allow you to tell people about your great podcast. Talk about it.
Thanks. It's called Hand or the Mic, just debuted last month. My most recent guest that I interviewed is a political scientist at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Dr. Parusha, and we're talking about women of color running for office. So timely, the fact that we had not a single one on stage last night. But yeah, which is to me a real, again, going back to the conversation about support amongst the Democratic base and Pete manufacturing black voters support. Yeah. He's still at 0%. I mean, here's what's actually even more troubling to me is people knowing that and still having so much enthusiasm for him. And, like, I don't know, like, I'm not close friends with these people, but I know people who are on Team Pete. Like, I know of them. And my sense is just like, you must really resent the base of the Democratic Party, even though you're a Democrat, because this is the core of this party, and I think you're kind of oblivious if you don't recognize that.
Yeah, one thing I've known for a long time, having moved to Chicago in 1981, it's as though there's a divide. Black people are on this side, white people are on that side, and that's the way it is. Monroe knows what I'm talking about. It's just the way it is. So Mayor Pete's got his supporters, and they don't understand it. Like when Henry Davis comes on the show and talks about the utter lack of support that Mayor Pete had in South Bend. They just don't know, what are you talking about, man? Yeah, I mean, we've been living this our whole life, Monroe.
Yeah, but the thing with no black candidates left except for Duvall.
Why? How I forget.
On stage, there's nobody on stage, though.
Exactly, nobody on stage. But Jonathan Capehart of the Washington Post made an interesting observation, I think. And he said that the reason Kamala and Corey are gone is because black voters, who are the most pragmatic voters in this country, decided that we need an old white man to beat an old white man. That's the way they want to get rid of Trump. And that they think that the best way to get rid of Trump is to have another old white man, i.e. Biden, to do it.
All right, I'm just saying, I don't want to go down this path, but I just have to give a shout out to our good friend Sergio Mims. Cape Heart's heading into Sergio country. Sergio said it on this show about 3 weeks ago that black voters came to the conclusion they really gain a whole heck of a lot from Barack Obama. So that's why they're not going for another black candidate. Remember Sergio said
exactly.
that?
And that's
Sergio. Totally threw Sergio under the bus.
That's some of Sergio's cockeyed thinking. They love Obama.
Okay, well, they
love
do.
Obama.
Okay, all right. Let's just put that one aside. But when I heard you say that, I had to give some love to Sergio. All right.
I love Sergio.
I love Sergio too.
Yeah.
All right, Samina, got to ask you about Handshake Gate. I talked about it at the start of the show, and that, of course, has to do with the tussle, I guess, between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. My beloved Democrats love to fight each other more than they love to fight Republicans. I guess it's easier to beat a Democrat than to beat a Republican, so they always take the easy way out. But you know how it went down. Elizabeth Warren has accused Bernie Sanders is saying in a private conversation that a woman cannot be elected president. Bernie says he didn't say it. Elizabeth Warren says he did say it. You're right. The questioner asked that question directly at last night's debate, and after the debate, when Bernie went to shake hands with Elizabeth Warren, she did not extend her hand to shake her hand. So now you talk about Twitter. Even I know that Twitter's afire with handshake gates. So your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's interesting because yesterday there was also something, I believe it was in The Intercept, where a bunch of progressives who are supporting either Sanders or Warren basically said, we got to come together and we can't take the bait. And what they were basically saying is this is actually the time where if there's oppo or if there's some kind of kerfuffle to be had, to happen amongst progressives to split that vote, it's going to happen now. And so we can't go down that path. So my feeling is that this is another case of trying to split progressives, and someone's found an issue, whether it was the Warren camp or the Sanders camp, whoever leaked it, because within 48 hours before that, there was a memo that came from a campaign, a field person, on how to do talking points on if someone supported one of Sanders' opponents. So that was a huge kerfuffle. And then you had this story from Warren, and CNN was reporting on it, which, again, I'm just a little suspicious of both of those stories, frankly, because I look at them and I think, okay, Iowa's coming up. I still think Iowa's going to be significant because it's going to propel whoever wins it to have some momentum. They're going to be the winner of the Iowa caucus. I mean, they're going to get press for it. So
maybe two, the way they now have it set up with a 15%. You come up
it's
with
possible. Yeah, you're right. It's possible. But I'm saying, but that's the thing is you can't dismiss that this only benefits someone like Biden. And sitting in the wings, sort of like Burns from The Simpsons, is Donald John Trump is saying, he's not even that smart, but I mean, I hate to be, no, I know he's like this benefits him because if progressives are split, and you have someone like Biden who, frankly, didn't. So
you don't buy into the fight at all. You're not.
I find it really. Because I see these hashtags erupt, I observe Twitter. I don't really participate on Twitter a lot, and so, and to me, social media is one of those places. And someone said this actually, an organizer said this. And this is a young black organizer in Chicago. She said, go to the hood. They have no idea what's happening. If you told them what was happening between Sanders and Warren, they would think you were talking about Game of Thrones. And so it doesn't mean anything to people outside the super engaged, super obsessed political nerds and the social media folks. And so talk to the base. What do they care about? Is any of this even bubble up? Yeah. And so that is where I think some folks, actually both in the Sanders and Warren camps, are saying, you know what? We just have to keep our heads down and keep talking to our supporters. And keep moving forward. Yeah. But there are some people who, frankly, will lose their minds regardless of what comes up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it is, and they will lose their minds.
Yeah.
It's predictable. Like a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, somebody was posting about, canvassing. I'm not going to say the name of the organization, canvassing in Chicago, and they posted a couple of pictures, and someone pointed out, and they're left leaning, and someone pointed out, wow, that's a really interesting picture for Chicago, and point out, like, isn't Chicago like 30% black? And then all these people are like, are you doing race science? Or like, and this, again, if people will lose their minds if you sort of poke at them, and someone's poking at you. But you have, all you can control is how you respond.
That's a valid point. Monroe, before we close this segment and bring Jaquie Algee on, who is our next guest, is in studio, did you have any strong reaction to Handshake Gate?
It's just, ooh, and that was it. I mean, it didn't matter to me. She's a little bit upset with him, so she didn't want to shake his hand. He probably said it. I think he's lying. I probably, because he's an almost 80-year-old white man, and so he's got that whole male privilege thing, So he probably said it, and
now she's mad because she knows he said it.
Right, exactly.
It's like he's saying she's a liar,
Yeah, but he didn't say it. He was careful enough not to quite say it, but basically that's what he said. And no big deal.
Yeah, I think Samina's absolutely right when most people don't even know what's going on. But all right, we got Jaquie Algee on. We're going to bring her on. Monroe, thank you very much. Great to see you back.
One more time, tell people about that podcast, Samina.
Well, I think Samina's going to stick around.
I'm going to stick around for a little bit.
Yeah.
You're booting me out.
Yeah, she'll be here. But tell them about the podcast anyway.
Add Hand Her the Mic on Facebook, add Hand Her Mic on Twitter, and on iTunes and the Demcast Network.
All right, very good. We'll be right back with Jaquie Algee.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
But we got to get down to business.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Jaquie Algee's joined us. Jaquie Algee has joined us from SEIU Healthcare. Welcome to the show, Jaquie.
Thank you, Ben.
And I know you're here to talk about the Women's March, which is this Saturday.
It is.
Correct? But before we talk about that, let's pick your brain on last night's debates. And we were talking about Handshake Gate. Democrats love to fight each other, Jaquie. This is my opinion, because it's easier to fight Democrats than it is to beat Republicans. So Democrats look for the easy way out. Always. My beloved Democratic Party is always chicken to take on Republicans, but they love to fight each other. This is me speaking. What's your thoughts about the whole thing?
Well, a couple of things that I'm thinking about it. Let me first, full disclosure, I didn't see the debate because I was at another event. But, to my sister's point earlier, in our communities, people are not looking at that. They don't know about it. I don't know that they would particularly care about it, even if they did. No, because that's not going to fix things for them. Them shaking hands is not going to fix one thing for them. And we'll talk later about some of those things. But and the reason that we're marching on Saturday.
All right.
It's not going to fix anything. But what I will say, and just want to share with you, I was listening to 1390 earlier, which I do often, and there was an advertisement that was paid by Donald J. Trump, Inc. It had, let me tell you something, I listen to 1390 almost every day. That just came on there today. I thought I was hearing things. I thought, oh, this has got to be a joke. The testimonial that they professed, or what they were professing, he stood for. He's a Christian man, and he does this. Keep in mind the audience. So he's a Christian man. I've never heard anything about it. I think he went to church maybe once since he's been in office.
He went to church the day he was sworn in.
Yeah.
I'm not certain that he's been to church since. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
And that's his thing.
Yeah,
but to portray him as this Christian man, that's a whole different thing. And to the audience that they were doing
that
it
is
to.
correct.
So that's what I'd be more concerned about.
In other words, what you're saying is that as we speak, as Democrats fight with each other, as Elizabeth Warren refuses to shake Bernie's hand, as Bernie denies something like Monroe said he probably said.
Yeah, I'm thinking that he might have.
He might have said it, but who knows the context, whatever.
Right.
As this is happening, Donald John Trump is buying up time on black radio stations to get his message out to black people in the hopes what? What is he looking to get?
Well, I think so. If we go back to this, not shaking hands stuff and this infighting, he can say, well, they're kind of distracted. He's a master at distraction. So they're distracted by if they are distracted by the handshake or the non-handshake, let me just squeeze in there and get some attention that says, hey, they're fighting over this. I'm trying to make things better for you.
Well, we discussed this with Monroe. Get your reaction to this. Every time, I don't know, you know Monroe Anderson. Every time Monroe does battle with Republicans, and he does it all the time, he's a big proponent, Monroe is, of impeachment. And every time he does battle with Republicans come right back. This is what they say, Sameena and Jaquie. They come back and they say, black employment is up under Donald John Trump, as though there's something proactive that Donald Trump is doing, using his powers in the presidency to help black people.
Yeah.
Like he woke up that morning, Jaquie, and said, you know what, I really want to help some black guy get a job. All right. What is your response when you hear that argument, that counter argument that Monroe gets all the time, that Donald Trump has been really good to black people?
Yeah. Okay. So what we know is, first of all, he hasn't been good to black people at all. The racist remarks and comments that he's been making since the beginning, and maybe, quite frankly, before he ever thought about running for office, just is a testament as to who he is and what he stands for. He has not done one thing, in my opinion, for us, except wake us up, hopefully, to know that he's got to go. And that's, again, another reason that we're marching on Saturday, so we can help get out the vote and get him out.
All right, let's talk about the Women's March that's coming up this Saturday. Let's do
Okay.
a transition right here. Go.
That's good. And so we're doing something different this time than we've done in the past marches. We're not having a program. We're marching, and we're marching to put people in step with a 2020 vision of what they want this city, this state, and this country to look like post-November.
So, in other words, no, I can remember speakers. You're not going to converge.
We
in
don't
one
have
place.
any speakers. We don't have. What we're going to do is we are gathering. The gates open at 9, and we have.
Where will this be? Where the gates literally open?
I'm sorry. So the gates will open at Ida B. Wells and Columbus Drive at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
And people will gather as they have in the past, hopefully thousands of them, and then proceed up to where we normally congregate and have a stage, which is at the corner of Columbus Drive and Jackson Boulevard. And at that point, we'll be getting people in line to step off at 11. That's our goal, to step off at 11. In the past, we've always had a section in front of the stage specifically for people with disability. Since we're not having a program, they are going to be our lead marshals, if you would, for the march, along with our elected officials, which Women's March Chicago really helps to take credit for getting so many of these women, especially women of color, in office in these last couple of years. And so they're going to lead. We've got Mayor Lightfoot. We've got President Preckwinkle. We've got Kim Foxx. We've got Lieutenant Governor Stratton Eccles. We've got Senator Lightfoot. We've got, who else? Congressman Jaquie, our one of our super friends and sheroes, I should say. We've got Congresswoman Kelly. We've got,
So
more than I can think of to name.
and so then the march will continue, and then it'll disperse. So no,
it will disperse. But what is going to be really unique about this march is we're going to have a gallery of issues. So there are approximately 5 blocks between that starting point and the Federal Plaza. Each block will address an issue, starting with 2020 census, which we know if we don't get the census done, man, I'm telling you, millions of dollars we've lost as a result of not having an accurate count in 2010. We aim to change that this time around. And then the next block will be gun violence prevention. We've got Kids Off the Block and some other, the Brady campaign, just some other amazing people that are doing work. And each block will have people that are doing this work every day to make a change. Then the following block will be climate justice. And we know that that's really important. We got some young people coming out that are doing work on climate that are really amazing, and their voices will be heard, okay, and their presence seen. And then we're going to do healthcare, and our other guests will talk more about that. And then finally, getting out the vote.
And this will be going on not just Chicago, but there'll be marches throughout the country.
There are marches throughout the country. Yeah.
So, Sameena, does this excite you? Do you think this could be a potential turning point of sorts, of getting Democrats to focus?
Yeah, I
on
mean, the
what's at stake?
census alone, think about it, we're not only dollars, but we're going to lose probably a seat, a congressional seat in this next cycle.
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
so
Yeah.
this is one of those things where it's incredibly important. One of the groups that I'm on the board of, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, is part of
That's right.
a lot of these democracy reform organizations, and has also gotten funding for this
right.
purpose. And when you've got folks, especially folks who are are not, English is not their native language, making sure there are people to reach out to those folks, especially in light of the immigration enforcement environment we have. This is like a scary time for folks. That's why that census question, that citizenship question on the census was such a big deal. So this is really critical stuff.
Well, the point that Jaquie didn't hear, Sameena made this pretty forcefully when we started our conversation about last night's debate. Absent from the debate, really, last night were a discussion of issues that would rile up Democrats, would fire up Democrats. The whole focus of the debate, Sameena, I'm stealing Sameena's point, but the whole focus of the debate was really like challenging Democrats with talking points from the Republicans. You get what I'm saying? Well, what's your response to X, Y, Z, and how this issue may not win over a Republican swing voters or swing voters who may go Democrat in Michigan and Wisconsin. And Sameena's point was there are issues that the Democrats could advocate and champion that would get Democratic voters to the polls. It seems like Democrats, they run away from their issues, Jaquie, and they always are trying to well, how can I win over this Republican as opposed to championing something that would get a Democrat to come to the poll? What's your response to that?
My response is they definitely need to talk real issue, real talk. That's what people want to hear, need to hear, and that's what's going to get people to the polls. All of this other stuff, and again, those are just 5 issues, but there are so many more that we need to address. Immigration, we can talk about that forever and how it impacts not just our Latino brothers and sisters, but brothers and sisters from all the diaspora who are not being considered as being threatened, but they are. And so we need to be having those real talk conversations so that people will, first of all, get energized and interested. Because right now I'm hearing people, it's so apathetic out there. I can't tell you, Ben. People are like, oh yeah, we're used to why am I going to vote? My vote's not going to make a difference. It's even beyond that now. It's like, why am I vote, period. I mean, and this is from people who normally vote, but they don't feel it's people I'm hearing say, I don't have a clue as to who I want to vote for. By now, someone should have surfaced for them. And I'm a proponent of issues and issue-based campaigns, and I think that if people really would focus on some, I'm not saying that they have to do the 5 we're doing on Saturday, but they definitely should look at those 5 and others that would help to mobilize people.
All right, before we take a break and bring on our mystery guest, who's sitting in the wings, we let Sameena go. I'm going to put Sameena on the spot a little bit. I do my my top 5. I rank them where I'm at, and my number 1, 2 have been pretty steady since the start of the campaign. Just your general thoughts. Who are the 5 candidates that you cannot even get 5?
I can't get to 5. I can't get to 5. I'm sorry. You can just cut the music, Dennis, because there's not going to be a countdown.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Can you
no.
get to 3?
Wow. Okay, I can get to 3.
All
I
right,
can
here
get to
we
3.
go.
Okay, and they are not in order.
Okay. Just naming 3.
It is naming 3. So Sanders, Warren, and Steyer.
Steyer. Whoa. Whoa. Why Steyer?
Okay, because if you're talking about who was on stage yesterday.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where I'm sticking to the people who are on stage. So Steyer is a billionaire. It's a problem. Like he is spending $100 million so far. But when he, every now and again he says something that makes sense. Like, go ahead, tax me. Like I'm like, I agree with Tom Steyer on that.
It's a valid point.
So he does, and the fact that he knows that campaign finance reform is an issue, climate is an issue. Where he loses me absolutely is the fact that 1, he's a billionaire, he's trying to buy the election, and 2, the fact that he is not a supporter of Medicare for all, which is one of my big issues. Yeah. So, but if you're forcing me to come up with a couple of names, I mean, think about it. There's only 6 people on stage. Yeah. I'm definitely not on Team Joe or Pete or Amy. So that's those folks are out. I think of those 3, actually, I feel like Pete is probably the least. To me, would rank at the very bottom.
All right. Now, years ago, people may not know this. Sameena was a stand-up comic. So another stand-up comic made the news yesterday. Dave Chappelle endorsed Yang. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of Dave Chappelle. So did that motivate you in any way? No, okay.
No, that's so I know there's members of the Yang gang. They might be in this room actually. But I have. So I feel like it's exciting that someone who is Asian American has gotten this far and is still in the race and is getting support, but I don't agree with him policy-wise. I find him problematic on a couple of different areas, one of which is the fact that he engages in tropes about Asian Americans and our model minority status or whatever. I feel like it's something he should really be educated on more, and he's not. Dave Chappelle is a classic example of somebody, and again, comes from my comedy world, where, and I think Sinbad actually was on a podcast. This is a deep cut. He was on a podcast with Pete Holmes, who's also a comic, and he basically said, there's this evolution that happens with comics where, they kind of have a certain kind of politics when they're open micers and they're sort of grinding and trying to become famous, and then they sort of lose that whole perspective once they get Dave Chappelle money. And so Dave Chappelle is not the same Dave Chappelle that walked away from everything.
Can I just say something in defense of Dave Chappelle?
Oh.
I know we were going to. I know you wanted to talk about Tulsi for a moment. I'll let you get the Tulsi remark in. But Dennis and I the other day were listening to a Dave Chappelle routine. I admit, I'm a big fan of Dave Chappelle. From 2004, was it? And it was about Michael Jackson. And I was listening to that, and I just saw his last 2 Netflix shows. Sameena, I'm telling you, Dave Chappelle of 2004 is pretty much Dave Chappelle of 2020 or 19. The world has changed. David Chappelle is David Chappelle.
You know what? He was he was hosting Saturday Night Live. He was the first host immediately following the 2016 election.
That is correct.
And I don't know if you remember his monologue.
I do remember his monologue.
At the very end, he says, I'm going to give Donald Trump a chance, but I want him to give us a chance too. And I was like, okay, Dave, with your millions.
That's a valid point.
I am not, and I know there's another really famous comic and a musician. Is it Donald Glover? Am I thinking? I'm looking at the millennial Childish Gambino.
Childish Gambino,
Didn't he endorse him too? So I'm just like,
Wait, what? Who did
Donald Glover?
do?
Yeah, he endorsed Yang.
Oh, okay.
Yang.
I was gonna. Yeah, he did.
I thought she was saying Trump
Donald
too.
Trump. Yeah, I'm like, what?
No. He endorsed
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Yang. So no, I mean, like, look, that's a whole episode. We can talk about.
We should have you come on and talk about comedy.
Women in comedy, men, like, don't even get me started. I have experienced all of it. I've literally been at an open mic where somebody makes a rape joke and thinks it's hilarious, and other guys don't say anything, and meaning me, has to be the one to say, you're not coming back to this open mic. So I mean, like, it's a subculture that most people aren't exposed to. So that's a separate conversation. Can we change subjects now?
Go ahead. We did the thing. Now we did my thing. Now do your thing.
So every time we come in here, I love to talk about Tulsi Gabbard. This is somewhat related to her. So for those folks who pay attention to what's happening outside of Chicago and America, we have a fascist in India. We have the Donald Trump of India, Narendra Modi. And what he's doing is a couple of things that are actually really similar to what Trump has done. He's essentially he's actually passed a law with the assistance of the parliament that's controlled by his party, the BJP, essentially a Muslim ban. It's called the Citizenship Amendment Act. He's also talking about a registry that would essentially be like a Muslim registry. There's been essentially mob violence and violence against protesters because people are protesting the Citizenship Amendment Act, called the CAA for short. And so, but for years, ever since Modi got into power, Muslims and people of lower caste, they're called Dalits, have been attacked by mobs. Wow. They've been lynched. I mean, someone who's suspected of having beef or some rumors created about them, not unlike what happened in this country not too long ago. They're being snatched up and killed by mobs. So this violence has been going on for a long time. That is one of the reasons why so many folks had an issue with Tulsi Gabbard, because she was fundraising from his supporters here in the U.S. There is a complete network of folks that have supported candidates like Tulsi Gabbard. The other candidate they support a lot is our Schaumburg's very own Raja Krishnamurthy. So on Sunday, we are going to be doing a protest on Devon Avenue to call attention to that and call out him and the supporters, the U.S.-based supporters of this violence. And you have literally had hundreds of millions of people protesting in India over the last couple of weeks. I think the average American has no idea. 250 million people in the streets. That's almost the entire population of the U.S. on the streets in India, and nobody knows about it. So that's my little...
Okay, and what time?
So that's going to be noon on Devon. There's a Facebook invite for it. We're being a little hush-hush on the information because we're anticipating counter-protesters.
I see.
There was an event last year where actually protesters were attacked physically, and they were called dirty Muslims. So, and Raja Krishnamurthy went to that event. It was in Lombard, Illinois, called the World Hindu Congress, and he went to this event and has yet to apologize for essentially what were hate crimes. So this is like real, all jokes aside, this is real stuff.
This is real stuff. Maybe we should bring Raja on sometime with you and have a real discussion about this.
We're gonna. I've written an op-ed with a veteran and Oak Park Village trustee, Arthi Walker Pethico, that's going to come out in Common Dreams in the next day or so, talking exactly about this, how these folks have actually infiltrated U.S. politics, and they're actually very Trump-leaning, and they're starting to get the vote out for Trump. So if you have areas like New Jersey, any places where there's a large Indian diaspora, they're trying to get the vote out for Trump. So it will affect our politics.
All right, very good. Sameena, thank you. You're going to have a busy weekend between the Women's March and that. You're going to be out in the streets. Samina Mustafa, she comes on our show regularly. She is the host of her own podcast, Hand Her the Mic. Thank you so much. We're going to take a real brief break, come right back with our mystery guest. Jackie's going to introduce our mystery guest when we return.
And this budget makes key reforms to Chicago's tax increment finance program, or what many people refer to as TIF. This year's additional surplus to the city is $31.4 million. But more than that, my team is undertaking a detailed review to reform TIF and align it more closely with our economic development needs and our values, accountability, and transparency. The days of the TIF slush fund are over.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky, take us home.
All right, we're almost done with today's show. It's been a great show. Monroe Anderson, Samina Mustafa, Jaquie Algee still in the studio from SEIU Healthcare. Jaquie, you have a mystery guest that you want to introduce. She's been very patient sitting through our discussion. She's got something to say, so why don't you introduce our mystery guest?
I am really honored and privileged to introduce Jaquie Johnson. She is a leader. She works at Roseland Hospital, but she's not only a leader as far as the union is concerned, but she's a leader at that hospital and the incredible work that she does every day in the many hats she wears. No one can tell her story any better than Jaquie.
All right, Jaquie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much.
And so what's your job at Roseland?
Well, I'm the lead medical assistant in the emergency room. I do pretty much almost everything.
So you're the person in the emergency room, like someone comes in, and are you the first person that meets the patient when they come in?
Yes. Usually I do a lot of hands-on care, so when a patient comes in, I'm usually the person that puts them on a heart monitor. I draw their blood. I do AccuChecks. If the patient needs to be cleaned, I will clean the patient. I also part-time secretary. I be a phlebotomist. I watch psych patients occasionally. I wear a few hats there.
And so is there a specific training that you have to go through, or is it just to handle all these different kind of situations, all these different kind of ailments and patients, or is it just learning on the job?
Well, it's mostly learning on the job. I did go to school. I do have a associate's in medical assistant, but the work that I do is nothing like school at all.
Talk about that. What's the difference, like the real job as opposed to what they teach you in school?
So usually a medical assistant would work in a doctor's office and would do more clerk work, like answer the phones, make appointments, do injections like birth control, and do urine analysis and stuff there. I do way more than I usually would in a smaller setting. We have 19 beds, so on a daily, and that's not even including if a hospital go on bypass or with Metro South closing, the high patient volume that we have now. We have patients in the hallways on beds. We have ambulances standing in line just to try to get a room. It's really different.
In other words, you're telling me there's a shortage of beds and healthcare south of the Loop in the city of Chicago.
Definitely. And we're really understaffed, so it's a challenge every day going into work, having maybe 2 or 3 nurses. I will be there and maybe another medical assistant, and if we have psych patients, that medical assistant have to watch the psych patients. So now there's no one to help the nurses with the patients on the floor but me, and I still have to focus on trying to do orders and help the doctor, and it's pretty exhausting some days.
So, Jaquie, how does this connect to some of the issues that are being raised at the Women's March?
So, again, one of the blocks that the issues will cover is healthcare. And what we know from her story, as well as countless numbers of stories of members and workers who work in hospitals, especially in the Black and brown communities, the South and West sides, that are short-staffed. They certainly don't get paid enough. And this, obviously impacts the quality of service that patients are getting, right? And so on Saturday, at that block, the healthcare block, we want to raise the fact that healthcare should not be a disparity anywhere in this city, that it should be equal, that we should not have to have people having more longevity of life because they have quality health care and access to it on the north side and other parts of the city, and don't have it on the south side and the west side. Not to mention that so many of those workers are Black and brown and women. Majority of them are women who they work 2 and 3 jobs. They work extended hours because of the short staff in their hospital settings. And they don't make enough money to take care of themselves and their families in a lot of cases, but as well to be able to afford health care for themselves. She can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, our hospital offers health insurance through the hospital. I make $14.50 an hour. There's no way I have enough money to be able to afford health insurance. Although they pay 70%, with that 70%, I have coworkers still paying $200-$300 an hour. I make enough where I can get government assistance. I have Medicare. I don't even have like Blue Cross Blue Shield or PPOs or HMOs where I could choose where I want to go. I just have to go to the nearest doctor that will take the insurance that I have. And that's not many now in the city of Chicago. A lot of organizations are becoming for-profit and taking more private insurance than public aid.
So let me make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So you make $14.50 an hour, and you pay 30% of your insurance bill every month, comes out of your check, or every 2 weeks or wherever that you get it. And that still does not cover your basic health needs.
No, it still does not cover at all. Right now, we're actually in bargaining, so we're trying to get our hospital to give us 100% coverage for our health care. We'll see how that goes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh the way you said, we'll see how that goes. I could just see I've sat at negotiations, I know the other side looks at you like, yeah, right.
Right.
But it's got to be one or the other, IKEA. They're paying you $14.50 an hour. So I was like, all right, look, if you insist on making me pay the 30% of the health care, all right, $30 an hour. How about that? How about me as a negotiator?
It would be amazing if I could make $30 an hour, especially with all of the positions that I fill for one person.
Right.
No,
excuse my ignorance on this, but it's a hospital. They got plenty of doctors. Like, why don't they just give you 100%? I don't understand it. It's like saying
no sense.
You work at a grocery store, but you can't eat any of the yogurt.
That's right.
You know what I mean? There's
That's
tons
right.
of yogurt over there.
That's right.
What am I missing here, IKEA?
well, the biggest thing they say they don't have money. They don't have enough money to help the workers. They don't have enough money to give us raises. They don't have enough money to help us with our insurance. But you have enough money to try to build another building across the street or to do renovations in a hospital. Like now we're working on a patient processing area, which I kind of feel is a little bit of a waste of, money can be distributed in a better way, I would say. Instead of spending $1 million on making a room for a patient where we don't have enough nurses or techs to even staff. instead of giving the nurses bonus pay or giving myself a medical assistant bonus pay or CNA, someone else to help them, or even bringing in temps, giving us a raise. I would definitely love a raise. It'd make it a little easier to get up in the morning to come deal with this workload, knowing that I would be at least somewhat compensated outside of the love for working for my patients. But it's tough. Like living by myself, it's hard to pay my rent, my utilities, get back and forth to work, pay for insurance, and still have money to live with.
How many hours a week do you work?
Normally technically it's supposed to be 80 hours. I work maybe about 140 something hours every pay period.
So that's all overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Do they pay you extra for the overtime?
Depends on the pay period. So one pay period, which is a few days longer, you might get it after 100 hours. Mm-hmm. And then one pay period you might not, and you just get straight pay across the board.
How is that? I mean, if you work,
that's why they're in negotiations right now.
That doesn't make any sense at all. But then I got to read the specifics of the language of the contract. They're getting away with something that the contract allows them to get away with. You either get overtime or you don't get overtime.
Right.
This, in my humble opinion, Jaquie, is why the insanity of our healthcare system. This sort of illustrates it. Follow me where I'm going. You guys work in a hospital.
Yeah.
It's like I said, there's tons of healthcare at the hospital.
That's
so
right.
And so much money. This is the one thing that Bernie and Elizabeth Warren agree with. So much money is spent on healthcare in our country. And so here the people's literally on the front line. You're the one that greets somebody when they come to the emergency room. I just was in the emergency room. I won't go into it, but it was your equivalent at this hospital. And this person had to answer questions because there was no doctor around. So we were asking your equivalent at this hospital, like, well, what do you think of that?
Right.
And they get all that nerve. I'm sure they train you. Don't tell them anything because then they'll hold us accountable. But out of compassion,
Sure.
The woman that was telling us information, and you know what? A lot of 90% of it came true. This is a woman who probably had no medical school training. Do you follow what I'm saying? But there's $14, $50 is just ridiculous.
It is. It is. It's absolute. And so that, now that speaks to the women and others that will be out there on Saturday. So many of them don't have this as an issue in their lives. So many of them they're not even aware that there are IKEAs out here who are doing this work every day to help take care of patients and people. One, and she said it herself, because she cares. But secondly, because she needs to have a job to take care of herself. I mean, what do we teach our young people about this society that is supposed to be just? You go to school, you get out, you work so you can earn a decent wage so you can take care of yourself and be a responsible citizen. How are you going to do that off of $14.50 an hour? So we want people on Saturday to know about the IKEAs of the world, that they're out here. And if you want to do anything, women in this city, to help make change and make a difference, come and stand behind and stand with them to demand that they have a better opportunity for not only their workplace, but their work life as well.
I hope the Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren factions and handshake gate, we were talking about this IKEA, the feud that erupted last night between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. I hope they're listening, because there are issues that are greater than whether Bernie insulted Elizabeth or Elizabeth insulted Bernie. You got to put that pettiness aside, because there are greater issues than your pet peeves. I know it's easy for me to say I was not the one insulted, et cetera, and so forth, IKEA, but I do believe there are greater issues that this country is facing than whether Bernie insulted Elizabeth or Elizabeth insulted Bernie.
That's right. And that is what the people care about. So they need, if I would say anything to any of them, is you need to listen, you need to pay attention to what everyday people are saying out here and what everyday people need you to do to help fix this country of ours, right? And not just lip service. We need you to listen, pay attention, and really commit to making a change.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Thank you very much, Jaquie and Akia. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Ben. We appreciate you having us.
And we'll bring you back. I'm sure this campaign, when do you hope to cut the deal on this?
Well, we just started, so we have a long fight ahead of us. So I'm hoping within the next couple of months or so, hopefully we don't have to strike.
I hope so too, and I'm going to
But you know we will.
Jackie's, you threw down the threat. I'm just going to tell you, get used to this word. No. N-O. You're going to hear a lot of no. Oh, no. What, are you kidding me? No. I've been in negotiations for a while. All right, I want to thank Ikea Johnson, Jaquie Algee. I want to thank Samina Mustafa. It's been a busy day. Monroe Anderson, Miles Porter, and of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. And as Ikea Johnson can tell you, back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash, Dr. D. See you tomorrow, everybody.
No one calls me that. All right, and remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. Downloaders, you know we live stream this program. It's true. Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel. Join us, and if you're brave, join the YouTube live stream chat. Who knows what you'll find on that one. We'll see you tomorrow.